The champagne was still fizzing in our glasses when Marcus came deliver the knife to my back. "Emily," he said, his voice carrying that smooth, practiced tone he usually reserved for investor pitches, "we need to talk about the future of quantum dynamics." I should have seen it coming. The signs had been there for weeks. The private meetings I wasn't invited to, the sudden changes in development priorities, the way our new investors seemed to look through me during presentations. But I've been too focused on perfecting our quantum encryption algorithm, the same algorithm I'd spent 3 years developing in my garage before Marcus ever entered the picture. We stood in the empty conference room of our newly leased office space in downtown San Francisco, the city lights twinkling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows that still bore the realtor's fingerprints. The $5 million series of funding had just cleared our account that morning. Everything I dreamed of was finally happening. Or so I thought. "The investors have concerns," Marcus continued, swirling his champagne without drinking it. "About leadership structure. About market positioning." He paused, studying my face. "About you." I set my glass down carefully, the subtle tremor in my hand betraying the sudden surge of adrenaline. "What kind of concerns?" "They feel, and I agree, that we need someone more." He gestured vaguely with his free hand. "Polished. Someone with real business experience. Someone who can talk to Wall Street." "I built this company," I said quietly. "I developed the core technology. I brought in our first clients." Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "And we're grateful for that." "Really. But this isn't about code anymore, Emily. This is about scaling, about market presence, about leadership." I knew what was coming next. I'd seen it happen to other female founders. Brilliant women pushed aside once their companies started gaining traction, their technical expertise suddenly deemed less valuable than an MBA and a golf club membership. "The board has voted," Marcus said, pulling out a folder I hadn't noticed before. "We're restructuring the leadership team. You'll be transitioned to a technical advisory role with a generous compensation package, of course." "Advisory role?" I almost laughed. "In my own company?" "That's the thing," he said, his smile widening slightly. "It's not really your company anymore. The new funding agreement diluted your shares significantly. You're a minority stakeholder now." The room seemed to tilt slightly. I grabbed the edge of the conference table to steady myself. "You knew about this. You planned it." "Business is business, Emily. You're brilliant with code, truly. But we need someone who understands how to build a real company. Someone like me." I picked up the folder without opening it. "And if I refuse?" "Then you'll be terminated for cause, lose your shares entirely, and face potential legal action for interfering with company operations." He shrugged. "The paperwork can go either way. Your choice." I should have screamed, should have thrown the champagne in his face, should have threatened legal action of my own. Instead, I smiled. "Thank you for being direct," I said calmly, tucking the folder under my arm. "I'll review these with my lawyer." Marcus blinked, clearly thrown by my composure. "That's good. Take the weekend to think it over. But we'll need an answer by Monday. The press release is already drafted." I nodded once and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, I turned back. "One question, Marcus. Did you ever actually read my patent applications? The original ones from before we partnered?" He waved dismissively. "The company owns all relevant IP. It was in the partnership agreement." "Right," I said softly. "Of course. Good night, Marcus." The elevator ride to the lobby felt surreal. 3 years of work, of sacrifice, of believing I could change the world with quantum encryption that actually worked at scale. All of it hanging by a thread because I hadn't seen the predator hiding behind the partner. But Marcus had made one crucial mistake. He hadn't just underestimated me. He'd fundamentally misunderstood what I'd built. Outside, the San Francisco night was alive with possibility. I pulled out my phone, not my company iPhone, but my personal device, and dialed a number I'd hoped I'd never need. "Deanne? It's Emily. Remember that conversation we had about contingency plans? I think it's time." Deanne Wong had been my patent attorney since before quantum dynamics existed. More importantly, she'd been the one who insisted on some very specific language in my original patent filings. "Are you at the office?" she asked, all business. "Just leaving. They did it exactly like you predicted." "Come over. Now, bring everything you have. And Emily, don't sign anything. An hour later, I sat in Diane's home office, surrounded by papers and digital files chronicling the evolution of quantum dynamics. 3 years of work spread across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. The good news, Diane said, examining my partnership agreement with Marcus, is that they've been sloppy. Very sloppy. The IP assignment clause they're relying on only covers developments made after the partnership was formed. I leaned forward. And the original patents? She smiled, pulling up a document on her tablet. Were filed in your name personally, 9 months before quantum dynamics existed. They cover the core architecture, the base algorithms, and most importantly, the quantum key distribution protocol that makes everything else work. So the company owns the wrapper, the user interface, the marketing materials. But the heart of the technology, that's still yours. Completely yours. I sat back, letting this sink in. Marcus doesn't know. Oh, it's better than that, Diane said, pulling up another document. Look at the IPO filing they submitted last week. Page 47, Section C. I scanned the dense text, then stopped, my heart racing. They're claiming full ownership of the core technology. They've included my patents in their IP portfolio. Exactly. Diane's smile turned predatory. They're not just being aggressive, they're making materially false statements in an IPO filing. That's securities fraud. The implications started cascading through my mind. The IPO was scheduled for Monday morning. The company, my company, was expected to debut at a $400 million valuation, largely based on the strength of the quantum encryption technology. Technology I still owned. What are my options? Diane leaned back, studying me carefully. Legally, we could file an emergency injunction, halt the IPO, and drag them into a protracted court battle. You'd probably win eventually, but it would take years and millions in legal fees. Or we let them walk right into their own trap. Let them launch the IPO claiming ownership of technology they don't actually control. Then we drop the truth at exactly the right moment. I thought about Marcus's smirk, his casual dismissal of everything I'd built. What do you need from me? Everything. Every email, every development log, every conversation about the patents. And most importantly, did you keep your original research notes? The ones from before Marcus? I nodded. Everything's in my private GitHub repository. Time-stamped, cryptographically signed. Perfect. She started typing rapidly. Go home. Get some rest. Don't respond to any calls or messages from them. And Emily? When this is over, you won't just have your company back. You'll own everything. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. I provided Diane with everything she needed while ignoring increasingly urgent messages from Marcus and the board. They wanted an answer about the transition. They needed me to sign the papers. The press release was ready to go. I responded only once, late Sunday night. I'll have my decision first thing Monday morning. Meanwhile, Diane had been busy. She'd assembled a team of securities lawyers, technical experts, and PR specialists. More importantly, she'd reached out to someone who would prove crucial to our plan. Sandra Chen, the SEC's lead investigator for tech industry compliance. The filing is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Diane explained during our final prep call Sunday evening. Trading will begin at 10. We move at 10:01. And you're sure this will work? Emily, they're about to commit securities fraud on a massive scale. The only question is whether you want to stop them before or after they do irreparable damage to themselves. I thought about every time Marcus had talked over me in meetings, every investor who'd addressed their questions to him instead of me. Every subtle and not so subtle suggestion that I should focus on the technology and leave the real business to him. After, I said firmly, definitely after, Monday morning dawned clear and cold. I watched the sun rise from my apartment's small balcony, sipping coffee and monitoring financial news sites. The IPO was already making headlines. Quantum dynamics set to revolutionize cybersecurity market. The articles all quoted Marcus extensively, praising his visionary leadership and innovative approach to quantum encryption. Not one mentioned my name. At 9:15 a.m., I received a final text from him. Last chance to do this the easy way. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into the secure server Diane had set up. Everything was ready: the patent documentation, the development histories, the proof that the company's entire IPO was built on a foundation of sand. At 9:30 a.m. exactly, quantum dynamics stock appeared on the NASDAQ. The opening price was set at $45 per share. At 9:45 a.m., trading in the pre-market began. The price jumped to $60. At 9:55 a.m., Marcus appeared on CNBC, speaking confidently about the company's proprietary technology and comprehensive IP portfolio. At 10 o'clock a.m., regular trading began. The stock opened at $72 and immediately began to climb. At 10:01 a.m., I pressed enter. The truth was about to change everything. At precisely 10:01 a.m., our coordinated strike began. First, the SEC received our comprehensive evidence package detailing the fraudulent IP claims in Quantum Dynamics' IPO filing. Simultaneously, every major financial news outlet received a press release from my legal team revealing the true ownership of the core patents. I watched the chaos unfold on 6 different screens in Diane's office. 10:02 a.m. The first alert hit Bloomberg terminal. GENT. Questions arise over quantum dynamics patent rights. 10:03 a.m. The stock, which had reached $78, suddenly froze. 10:04 a.m. Marcus still live on CNBC, visibly flinch as the host received breaking news through his earpiece. Mr. Kane, we're getting reports that your company may not own the core technology behind your encryption system. Care to comment? The camera caught Marcus's face in perfect clarity as the blood drained from it. We have full ownership of all relevant intellectual property. According to documents we're receiving, the host continued, glancing at his tablet, the fundamental patents for your quantum encryption technology are personally owned by your co-founder, Emily Sullivan. The patents predate quantum dynamics' existence by nearly a year. Marcus's smile became rigid. There must be some mistake. Our legal team has thoroughly vetted. He was cut off by a new alert flashing across the bottom of the screen. NASDAQ HLT's T-rating of QENTUM Dynamics KDYN pending investigation. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. What you doing? I didn't respond. Instead, I watched as Diane's carefully orchestrated plan continued to unfold. At 10:15 a.m., Sandra Chen from the SEC made a public statement. We are investigating potentially serious discrepancies in Quantum Dynamics' IPO filing regarding their intellectual property claims. Trading will remain halted pending a full review. The financial media was in a frenzy. Headlines updated by the minute. Quantum Dynamics IPO in chaos. Tech startups opening day derailed by patent dispute. Co-founder claims ownership of core technology. At 10:30 a.m., our second wave hit. Diane released my complete documentation package to selected journalists. Every email, every development log, every piece of evidence showing that I had developed the technology independently before Marcus ever entered the picture. More importantly, we released proof that Marcus and the board had been explicitly informed of the patent situation months ago, but had chosen to ignore it. Emily, Diane said, looking up from her phone, the SEC wants to meet. Now, and they want Marcus there too. I straightened my blazer, navy blue, impeccably tailored, chosen specifically for this moment. Where? Their San Francisco office. 20 minutes. The ride downtown was surreal. Every financial news app on my phone was exploding with updates. Quantum Dynamics stock remained frozen at $78, but trading in related companies was going wild as the market tried to process the implications. Marcus was already at the SEC office when we arrived, along with the company's legal team. He started to speak when he saw me, but his company counsel, grabbed his arm and shook his head sharply. Sandra Chen met us in a large conference room with a view of the bay. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Mr. King, your company's IPO filing claims ownership of patents numbered. She read off a series of numbers I knew by heart. Is that correct? Marcus looked at his lawyers, who nodded slightly. Yes, that's correct. Ms. Sullivan. Sandra turned to me. You claim these patents are registered to you personally, is that right? Yes, I said clearly. I filed them 9 months before Quantum Dynamics existed, before I ever met Mr. Kane. That's impossible, Marcus interrupted. The partnership agreement clearly states. I have the original patent documents right here. Diane cut in smoothly, sliding papers across the table. along with Emily's complete development history, including GitHub commits dating back 4 years. Would you like to see them? The next hour was excruciating for Marcus and his team as they realized just how thoroughly they'd miscalculated. The partnership agreement they'd relied on only covered developments made after the company's formation. My original patents, the ones that made everything else possible, remained firmly in my control. This is a serious matter, Sandra said finally. We're looking at potentially criminal securities fraud. The IPO filing materially misrepresented the company's intellectual property assets. Marcus's lawyer cleared his throat. Perhaps we could discuss a settlement. Settlement? I laughed softly. You tried to steal my life's work. You tried to erase me from my own company. And now you want to settle. Emily, be reasonable, Marcus said, his voice taking on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. The company needs these patents. We can figure out fair compensation. Fair? I stood up slowly. Was it fair when you diluted my shares without notice? When you tried to force me out of the company I built? When you took my technology and claimed it as your own? The room fell silent. Here's what's going to happen. I continued, pulling out a document of my own. I've prepared a new licensing agreement for the patents. The terms are simple. I regain majority control of quantum dynamics. The board resigns. You, Marcus, sell your shares at their original purchase price and step down. In return, I don't press charges for patent infringement or fraud. That's extortion, he sputtered. No, Sandra interjected. Given the evidence of intentional misrepresentation in the IPO filing, Miss Sullivan is being quite generous. The alternative would likely involve criminal charges. Marcus's lawyers huddled in whispered consultation while we waited. I could see the exact moment they realized they had no choice. The entire IPO was built on technology the company didn't actually own. Without my patents, quantum dynamics was worthless. How long do we have to decide? One of the lawyers asked. The market opens again tomorrow, I said simply. You have until then to accept my terms. After that, I'll license the technology to your competitors instead. As we left the SEC office, reporters had already gathered outside. Someone had leaked news of the emergency meeting. Marcus slipped out a back entrance, but I walked straight through the front door. Miss Sullivan, is it true you own quantum dynamics core technology? Will the IPO be canceled? Did the company try to steal your patents? I stopped and faced the cameras, channeling every ounce of confidence I'd hidden during months of preparation for this moment. I created the quantum encryption technology that makes quantum dynamics possible. I built it before the company existed, before Mr. Kane became involved. Today is about correcting the record and ensuring that truth prevails over deception. I'll have more to say tomorrow. Back at Diane's office, messages were pouring in. Other directors trying to save themselves. Investors demanding explanations. Employees asking if they still had jobs. What now? Diane asked, watching me scroll through the chaos on my phone. I smiled, thinking about all the nights I'd spent in my garage, coding and dreaming and believing that intelligence and hard work would be enough. I'd been naive then, but I wasn't naive anymore. Now, I said, we rebuild. But first, we make sure this never happens to another founder. The next few hours would determine not just my future, but the future of the company I created. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone take it from me. As evening fell over San Francisco, I received one final message from Marcus. You've destroyed everything. I typed back a single line. No, I'd just taken back what was mine. See you tomorrow. The real work was about to begin. The morning after the IPO chaos dawned with a different kind of tension. I arrived at Quantum Dynamics offices at 7 a.m., escorted by 2 members of the corporate security team who had quietly reached out the night before to offer their support. The lobby was already buzzing with nervous employees, all trying to understand what yesterday's events meant for their future. I hadn't been in the building since Marcus forced me out, but I walked through those doors like I owned them, because now I did. At 3 a.m., after 14 hours of negotiations, Marcus and the board had capitulated to my terms. They had no choice. The company's valuation was built entirely on my patents, and I had all the leverage. Emily, Jessica from engineering, spotted me first. She rushed over, others following in her wake. Is it true? Are you taking back control? I smiled, addressing not just her but the growing crowd of employees gathering in the lobby. Yes, and we have a lot of work to do. The elevator ride to the executive floor was filled with supportive whispers and quiet congratulations. These people, the real heart of quantum dynamics, had watched me build this company from nothing. They'd seen me pushed aside, and now they were witnessing my return. Marcus's office, my office now, was empty when I arrived. He cleared out overnight, leaving behind only a post-it note with a single word, "Congratulations." The sarcasm was obvious, but I didn't care. I had bigger concerns. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called an all-hands meeting in the main conference room. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls and streaming via video from our other offices. Yesterday, I began you all learned some disturbing truths about this company's leadership, about attempts to take credit for and control of technology that I developed. Today, I want to talk about the future. The room was silent, everyone hanging on every word. First, your jobs are secure. In fact, we're expanding. The technical vision that brought you all here hasn't changed. It's just back in the hands of its original creator. Relief swept through the crowd. Then came the harder part. Second, we're rebuilding our leadership team from the ground up. Based on merit, not connections. Based on innovation, not intimidation. I'll be interviewing every department head personally this week. And yes, internal candidates will be given priority. That brought smiles to several faces, particularly among the veteran employees who'd been passed over for promotion under Marcus's regime. Finally, we're going to do something unprecedented. Every employee who stayed with us through this transition will receive additional equity in the company, because quantum dynamics isn't just about quantum encryption anymore. It's about proving that the right way can also be the successful way. The applause was spontaneous and genuine. As it died down, I noticed Diana from legal signaling urgently from the doorway. The SEC's statement was about to drop. I turned on CNBC just in time to catch it live. The Securities and Exchange Commission has reached a settlement with former executives of Quantum Dynamics regarding disclosures in their IPO filing. The company will be permitted to resume trading under new leadership, subject to amended filings and certain restrictions. My phone immediately exploded with messages. Investors wanting meetings, reporters seeking comments, competitors testing waters. But the most interesting message came from Sandra Chen at the SEC. Clean house thoroughly. You have a one-time chance to set this right. Don't waste it. I spent the next week rebuilding my company from the inside out. Every decision Marcus had made was reviewed. Every agreement was reassessed. Every employee was given a chance to voice their concerns and their ideas. Jessica, who had been quietly maintaining the core codebase even after my departure, was promoted to Chief Technology Officer. Her first act was to reorganize the development team based on expertise rather than politics. Mark from Sales, who had apparently been maintaining a secret list of clients who refused to work with Marcus, was made VP of Client Relations. Within days, he had brought back 3 major accounts we'd lost. But the real victory came from an unexpected source. Remember Sandra Chen from the SEC? She didn't just help expose the fraud. She introduced me to Catherine Hayes, a veteran tech CEO who had faced similar attempted coups in her own career. Catherine didn't want a job or a board seat. What she wanted was to help create something new. The Founders Defense Fund, a legal and financial resource for entrepreneurs facing illegal takeover attempts. I became its first sponsor and success story. 2 months after the failed IPO, we were ready to try again. This time, everything was done right. The patents were properly licensed to the company. The ownership structure was clear and fair. The technical documentation was impeccable. The night before our second IPO attempt, I received an unexpected email from Marcus. "You'll never pull this off. The market remembers." I didn't bother responding. Instead, I forwarded it to our new PR team with a note. Add this to the resilience narrative. The next morning, Quantum Dynamics stock opened at $82 per share, higher than our first attempt, and kept climbing. By closing bell, we had reached $110, making us the best performing tech IPO of the year. But I wasn't in New York to ring any bells or celebrate with bankers. Instead, I was in our San Francisco office, coding alongside my team, just like I had been doing since the beginning. "You could have taken the day off," Jessica said, bringing me a coffee. "Enjoyed the spotlight a little." I shook my head, not looking away from my screen. The spotlight isn't what matters. The work is what matters. The people are what matters. 6 months after our successful IPO, I stood on stage at the Women in Tech Summit, delivering the keynote address. The room was packed with founders, engineers, and investors, including more than a few who had initially backed Marcus over me. They say success is the best revenge, I told the crowd. But I disagree. Success isn't about revenge. It's about vindication. It's about proving that you can build something meaningful without compromising your principles, without becoming the very thing you set out to change. In the front row, I spotted Catherine Hayes sitting with 3 young founders, women who had already received support from the Founders Defense Fund. They were taking notes, phones recording, eyes bright with possibility. The tech industry has a long history of stolen ideas, betrayed trust, and corruption masquerading as disruption. I continued. But that's not our future. Our future is about creation, not theft. About collaboration, not domination. About building things that matter with people who matter. The applause was thunderous, but the real victory came later, during the networking session. A young engineer approached me, clutching a notebook filled with quantum computing calculations. "I have an idea," she said nervously, "but everyone says I need a business person to make it real, that I should focus on the tech and let someone else handle the company." I smiled, remembering my own journey. "Let me tell you about patents," I said, pulling up a chair, "and about how to protect what you build." 1 year to the day after Marcus tried to push me out, quantum dynamics was valued at $2.8 billion. Our quantum encryption technology had become the industry standard, and our corporate culture was being studied at business schools as a model of ethical leadership. Marcus? He tried to start another company, but it turned out investors had long memories. Last I heard, he was consulting for struggling startups, telling war stories about the company he almost stole. As for me, I still code every day, still work alongside my team, still remember what it felt like to build something from nothing, to almost lose it, and to take it back. But now, when young founders ask me for advice, I don't just tell them to believe in themselves. I tell them to be prepared, to document everything, to understand that sometimes the biggest threat isn't failure, it's success, and what it makes other people willing to do. Building something revolutionary is only half the battle, I tell them. Protecting it is the other half. Late one evening, as I was leaving the office, I passed the wall where we display our patents. The original ones, my personal ones, that started everything. A young intern was studying them intently. "Quite a story behind those," I said. She turned, eyes bright with curiosity. "I know, they taught it in my business ethics class. About how you didn't just win, you changed things." I smiled, thinking about the Founders Defense Fund, about the dozens of entrepreneurs we'd already helped, about the countless others who would never face what I faced because the industry had finally started to change. "You know what the real secret is?" I told her. "It's not about winning or losing. It's about building something that matters, protecting it with everything you have, and then using that strength to help others build too." She nodded thoughtfully, then asked the question I'd been expecting. "Weren't you afraid when you pressed that button on IPO day?" "No," I said honestly, because by then I knew something Marcus never understood. True power isn't about control or dominance. It's about creation, about protection, about doing things the right way even when the wrong way seems easier. I looked out at the San Francisco skyline, at the city that had seen my greatest defeat and my greatest triumph. And sometimes I added softly, it's about showing the world that the people they try to erase are exactly the ones they should have feared all along. The intern smiled, understanding perfectly, because that's what my story had become, not just a tale of personal vindication, but a blueprint for change. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fight back. It's build something better.